In LA this week.
I'm Anna Marcos. The Abilities Expo highlights all the things you can do, no matter what your level of ability or disability. That's coming up.
I'm Saida Pagan, and I'll tell you about a surprise reunion between a group of firefighters and the man whose life they saved. I'll have that story coming up.
I'm Rasha Goel. Up next, how drumming can be a source of communication during an emergency.
Hey everyone, I'm Saida Pagan. Here's what's happening in LA this week. Mayor Eric Garcetti and Councilmember Joe Buscaino have been hard at work on the homeless problem. The duo were in Council District 15 this week, breaking ground on 2 new bridge home sites.
Let us remind ourselves how far we've come. Let me take you back to that meeting at the Port Boys and Girls Club when we proposed a navigation center, a storage center, to today, where we said yes to not only a bridge home, but we said yes to a storage facility.
What this is going to provide is 100 individuals that are currently homeless will be able to get off the streets and move into this membrane structure that will house these people.
Together this year alone, we'll have 30 projects open up, 1,300 units by the start of next year. That includes 6 supportive housing developments here in CD 15, again reflective of this council office's work.
So this is 3 bridge home sites in my district. We just opened the one in Watts late fall, and we're breaking ground the one here in San Pedro, 100 beds, and following up with the one in Wilmington with an additional 100 beds. So in total, 300 beds, a navigation center. We are coming together with all stakeholders, residents, and we've said yes to solutions to homelessness.
And not to be outdone, North Hollywood saw the opening of their own homeless navigation center. Anna Marcos was among the first to tour the facility and see how collective LA City efforts are trying to make unsheltered living a little easier.
You are entering the first homeless navigation center ever in LA, this one right here in the Valley, with 3 more about to open in Venice, San Pedro, and South LA. So why a navigation center? It's a new concept in making homeless residents feel at home while they wait on the streets for an actual home. It's called the Navigation Center because this place will help them navigate all the things the rest of us take for granted: showers, restrooms, a place to store your stuff.
If you became homeless today, you're going to wait an average of 3 years before you are housed. What happens to you during those 3 years? You know, what happens to you physically? What happens to your mental health? You know, how do you use the things that we take for granted every day? Where do you brush your teeth? Where do you use the restroom? If they, come here in the morning so they can get dressed before they go to work, those are things we want them to be able to do.
Besides a hygiene trailer, there is a navigation and intake building where residents will get counseling and housing services. A day labor center will allow job applicants to look for work or use the computers. And then there is the all-important storage area with its 60-gallon containers.
If you had a tent you could store in it, you'd be able to get a small piece of luggage inside of this, along with, a backpack.
The group Hope of the Valley will run the program.
This is really one of the most basic necessities. Where do you hold and place your valuables? And on the streets, oftentimes they get stolen, they get taken, they get moved. It's very difficult for people to even leave where they're staying. That's why oftentimes there are encampments, because they're trying to hold on to what little they have left.
I've had people tell me that this isn't a solution. This isn't a solution, that the problem is much bigger than this, that this is just a Band-Aid. And my response is always the same. Band-Aids serve a purpose, and a big one at that. Band-Aids facilitate and promote healing. They prevent things from getting worse.
The center is modeled after several groundbreaking navigation programs in San Francisco, but LA is also on the cutting edge. Garcetti says the city has built more supportive housing in the last 3 years than in all 30 years before that. In fact, supporters say his administration has created enough housing to house all those who were homeless when Garcetti first took office. It's just that the problem keeps growing. But so does the pace of housing construction.
There will be every 2 to 3 weeks an opening in Los Angeles for the next few years. That's a pace unlike any in America. And Los Angeles is doing more than any city in the United States when it comes to homelessness. But nobody's doing enough.
This, the first LA Navigation Center, will be fully operational within the next several months.
Our next story, Abilities Expo 2020, was also covered by Anna Marcos. And as you'll see, it was probably a more serendipitous assignment than any of us might have imagined. Take a look.
Look at the bell! Touch the bell!
Wouldn't it be great if you could do almost anything you dreamed of doing? Well, at the Abilities Expo, you can. Aspiring rock climbers of different abilities try the No Limits Rock Wall, one of 100 exciting exhibits challenging minds and bodies. Among the climbers, myself.
And if you can't use your legs, that is no problem in climbing this wall. I myself have hurt one of my ankles, but with this adaptive device, I can actually climb using my arms.
Yep, there are no excuses not to try it, but there is a bell to help you celebrate if you reach the top. The key here is independence. Adaptive equipment has become a growing business with a growing clientele. And there are all manner of workshops, adaptive activities, wheelchair-accessible cars, and cutting-edge gadgets to help you gain that independence.
We have exoskeleton technology. Somebody who's a paraplegic straps on this device. It looks like they're coming right out of Star Wars, and they can stand up and walk with the assist of this computer-controlled skeleton.
I'm a paraplegic. I don't walk. It moves my ankles, it moves my knees, my hips, everything. It simulates everything walking. I'm upright, you know.
Apparently, this is all done through a high-tech watch.
After I push to walk, I have a few seconds, it beeps on me so that I have to lean forward about 8 degrees, and then that initiates the steps.
These virtual reality trainings can help you learn to play tennis, drive a car, and yes, even use a wheelchair without ever bumping into anybody until you get the hang of it. Adaptive dance and adaptive sports are also popular. This little guy just might take after Tiger Woods one day.
Learn to play with them. So he loves this new experience for him. He's very involved in playing and do all kind of activities. Normally he doesn't focus that long, and I'm impressed today.
LA's own Department on Disability is also on hand to help provide access for residents of the differently abled community. Access to housing, transportation, parking, and wheelchair-friendly sidewalks. The Department on Disabilities can help you get those sidewalks fixed and even get you blue curb disabled parking near your house. How's that for access? And at the Abilities Expo, you can play ball or even spacewalk to your heart's content. And it's all free.
Their motto reads, serving with courage, integrity, and pride. And that is what we expect from the men and women of the LA Fire Department, to serve without question or thanks. Well, recently I had the honor of being present when one Los Angeles man got to deliver his thanks personally.
A cardiac arrest survivor.
It was an emotional moment for everyone attending this Los Angeles Fire Commissioners Board meeting. Isaac Diaz, who had suffered a nearly fatal heart attack in 2018, finally got to say thank you to the firefighters who had saved his life.
Mr. Diaz, having you here is outstanding for our people to know that their efforts can be rewarded by survivors like yourself.
The drama unfolded at a South Los Angeles car wash where Diaz had pulled over suffering from chest pain. He says he begged for someone to call 911 and then collapsed. Firefighters from Station 15 rushed to the scene just as a passerby was performing CPR.
A lot of people want to be heroes, and these guys actually are heroes.
Isaac Diaz, along with Captain Kenneth Cordaro, firefighters Garrett Wasserman, Richard Othon, and Scott Cleland spent a few precious moments reminiscing. Diaz was near death when they arrived.
One person doing compressions, one person breathing, one person starting the IV, another person getting medication ready.
Mr. Diaz says he'll be forever grateful to the firefighters for saving his life. As a result, he was able to raise his 2 children and eventually bury his mom.
Diaz talked of his gratitude and showed us family pictures of his late mother.
I just wanted to thank him and say, no, it wasn't just me that you saved. You impacted my mom, my wife, my children, my family, my friends. What they do, it trickles.
The firefighters say they were equally happy to see Mr. Diaz.
That was incredible. It was one of the first times that I've had this happen where someone was able to come back and actually talk to me, you know.
It's nice to see the positive outcome at the end. Oftentimes we transport somebody, we drop them off the hospital, and that's the last you hear about it. And oftentimes you wonder what happened to this person.
For their efforts, the firefighters received certificates of appreciation from the City of Los Angeles. Besides thanking the fire department, Isaac Diaz is also giving back in another way. He recently won a seat on his neighborhood council and is now representing his community in South Los Angeles. Councilmember Curran Price took the podium in City Council with a lot to celebrate. His presentation honored African American heritage, a pair of Academy Award winners, and the joy and mystery of black hair.
And the Oscar goes to Hair Love, Matthew A. Cherry and Karen Murphy-Tolliver.
Hair Love is a story about, loving yourself, no matter what type of hair you have, be that curly, straight, no hair at all.
I think the people have spoken. People need to see themselves on screen. Hollywood has to answer the call and make these movies for everyone.
It's my honor to present the 2020 Academy Award winners for the Best Animated Short Film, Hair Love. So we're just excited to celebrate Black history, Black culture, and the trials and tribulations of hair.
Okay, so what do I have to do now?
First, you have to take out the ponytail.
Take out the ponytail.
Inspired by seeing viral videos on the internet featuring Black fathers tackling the seemingly daunting task of styling their daughter's hair.
Are you ready to do this?
It really was done with representation in mind, to have young people be able to see themselves in animation.
The images that we're creating are actually helping change the world. I realized this was an opportunity to really present positive images of Black men.
Did anyone else notice that this is the second year in a row that an Oscar-winning animated film featured people of color? I'm going to call that progress. Well done, you guys. LA City Council members take a stand for the rainforests. USC celebrates International Women's Day. And it's time to salute historically Black colleges and universities. All this next on CityBeat.
The annual Historic Black College and University Day celebration took place in City Council, allowing city workers to show pride in their alma maters.
There was no health care available in South LA, so they founded Martin Luther King Hospital and Charles R. Drew University to train physicians and train residents so that there would be care available in that community.
The USC Marshall School of Business will present its International Women's Day Celebration 2020. The summit seeks to gain insights and practical paths forward toward equity and diversity through panel discussions and workshops addressing issues affecting women in the workplace. LA City Council members announced the imminent passage of a motion and a resolution condemning the Brazilian government. The motion calls for divesting LA City from corporations profiting from the destruction of the Amazon rainforest and the violence against indigenous people who are fighting to protect it. Oscar winner Joaquin Phoenix and recording artist Moby attended with representatives from environmental protection groups.
Remember, meat and dairy production's causing climate change and deforestation, and there's no way around that. Thank you.
It wouldn't be African American Heritage Month without celebrating the many artist activists who've paved the way. Well, this year at the Nate Holden Performing Arts Center, they're paying tribute to the one and only Billie Holiday.
I'm so honored to do this work here in this theater bearing the name of Nate Holden. I was born 150 yards from the front door of this theater. So as a child, I navigated my way to play with friends, to have a hamburger, to get my hair cut, to go to grammar school and middle school with all of my siblings, and to return in a role of cultural leadership here at the Nate Holden Performing Arts Center is a complete joy for me.
Ooh, what little moonlight can do to you. You're in love. Yeah.
It means a dream come true. When I became councilman of this district, we had a theater named the Ebony Showcase, and the earthquake took it away, and it had to be replaced. And so I got a lot of help from my dear friend, President Bill Clinton. I said, I got to have some money so we can rebuild this theater. And that's what we've done.
I want to say that we are very proud to be here in our community and to produce theater that represents African Americans in real life.
After all the help I give her opening her kitchen and all of that, and she said no.
I believe that this theater is what's needed in Los Angeles. I mean, first of all, it's named after Nate Holden. I love the fact that it's not a theater that's in a different neighborhood that might be more melanated, less melanated than this one. I love the fact that it is reaching out to this community and making art happen.
God bless the child that's got his own. That's got his own.
And be sure to stick around for our feature later in the program, where I had the pleasure of interviewing the production's director, Ren T. Brown, and former state senator Nate Holden himself. Celebrating African American heritage is far from over in Los Angeles. In Freedom Hall at Forest Lawn, Afrocentric art and culture were the touchstones for a night of unity and community.
What we are doing this evening is coming out to celebrate Black History Month.
And we're going to have an amazing show tonight. We're going to have musicians, singers, we're going to have speakers, comedians, dancers, and this is one of the most beautiful events that Holden prepares for the community.
Right here for this particular event, we brought out some art to be sure that we understand what is happening in our history. This particular piece that is here really gives an understanding of some very powerful men, black men that have been very inspirational to our entire world. Only the African American culture comes to see an African American event, then we're not spreading the culture and the event and the information.
I think we need to open up and cross the cultures and break the boundaries and break these divisions. It just makes this world better and more entertaining. Just like tonight, we get to see all these wonderful people perform, and everybody who's out there sharing their talents with us, no matter what their background is so special to all of us, and we need more of that.
This is important, and it represents a great history, and knowing that we can come together for something that's heartfelt and something that makes us remember that, you know, the past is not so long ago. But it's good to have a lot of performers come together that can communicate and share and just basically be an entertainment for us to be able to come together, you know, and have a great atmosphere of peace and harmony.
Most people agree that great music transcends race and age and time, but the drum has a special place in African culture. As Rasha Goel reports, there's more than one way to beat a drum.
Lorraine Moreland, a drummer and spoken word artist, shares with us the historic relevance of drums throughout African American history. She shares how it's been used as a communication tool.
Basically, back in time, there was a lot of wood. So you could use that. You could use the wood. You could make that beat. And then somebody else would make it. And then it goes down, and they could hear it from way yonder. And then it would go, and they would communicate. And that's the way it was.
The slaves used drums as a communication tool during slavery in America. But taking that tool and applying it to today's times, we can use drums to alert people to emergencies that are taking place.
And now there's an idea of how we could use the drum as a tool in present times.
More and more and more.
Within our Readier LA neighborhood program, we encourage people to come together within their neighborhoods and utilize their resources in terms of preparing for emergencies like earthquakes, fires, and other disasters.
So how can drumming help you? Well, officials tell me that your neighbors are your first source of help during an emergency before you wait for the firemen or police department to get down there. So what you can do is get together with your neighbors, figure out a sound that works for you, and during an emergency, use that sound as a way to communicate to each other.
While the emergency is going on, someone can just be off to the side beating this drum while people are packing up and getting out. People are telling other people that there's an emergency, telling others that they need to evacuate the area. So a drum can just be the pulse to the emergency that's at hand.
We always have the alarm going off for a fire or something. But can you imagine? You hear that. It gets right there. And people will know that we have a serious problem going on right now. You know, just by hearing that, you know.
Ready Your LA Neighborhood is a program by the city's emergency management department that helps neighborhoods prepare for emergencies. In addition, the city also has Notify LA, an emergency alert system you can sign up for.
We send messages through cell phone, email, and your landline, and we will let you know when an emergency happens and what you need to do in terms of the response.
And while those technological tools are being used in our modern world, we can still find a way to be connected through this historic instrument.
I was ready to dance.
We can always count on the library to bring us stories we never knew we would cherish, to provide the tools and knowledge we need to move us forward, and to provide the sacred ground where we can be and express who we are.
You're very clear about being black, about being bi, about being Muslim, about being all of your various different identities all together.
Yeah, it's great because it can be really exhausting to perform one version of yourself.
This community is extremely diverse. It's about 55% Latino and 45% Black. And one of my primary jobs is to bring programming to this community that reflect the community.
Being black and being queer are not things that are separate from each other, not something that have just converged in recent times, not a trend. It's something that is inherent to both blackness and queer identity.
To be black is to be queer, is to be trans, is to be all of this all at once. And it does not in any way kind of undo or detract from your blackness to allow queer and trans people to also, you know, embrace their blackness as well. You mentioned folks from the Harlem Renaissance earlier. Like, I remember learning about them. I remember reading their poems and their plays, but no one ever told me that they were queer, or bi, or gay, or whatever the case may be.
It's like, is it activism or is it just telling the historical record as it was? And so like that's a question I'm constantly thinking about. The Harlem Renaissance was a time of cultural explosion in the United States. It was this convergence of people, black people from a bunch of different areas, from the South, from the Caribbean, from Central and South America, coming together and forming a new and unique identity. As they were doing that, they were also questioning what it meant to be a man or a woman, and also the gray area in between, or the vibrancy in between, and that laid the groundwork for the work that's being done today.
I think one thing that's very important for us today is to make sure that we create the world that we want instead of just complaining about it.
Well, today we are very honored to have two extremely influential individuals in the history of our city, former state senator and city council member Nate Holden and Ren T. Brown, an award-winning performer of stage and screen. Thank you both for joining us.
It's my pleasure to be here.
It is my pleasure.
Yes, now we want to talk about all the amazing and exciting performances and things that are happening at the Performing Arts Center.
Presently, we have 1 week left. We're presenting a play called Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and Grill about one of the last performances in the life of the great Billie Holiday. So following that, we're going to have the two-time Tony nominee, Vivian Reed, doing a tribute to Lena Horne. Then the wonderful, wonderful dance company, the Garth Fagan Dance Company, he gave the world the Lion King. I mean, literally gave the world the Lion King. And then a Philip Hayes Dean play in May called The Sty of the Blind Pig.
Let's talk about the importance of having theater in communities of color.
It reminded me when I was a kid, if I went to the movie and I didn't see any people of color in the movie, sometimes the butler, the chauffeur, the maid, it's said to the community and to the general public, that's what you do. You're the butler and you're the maid and you're the chauffeur and that's it.
Often the narrative is written by the dominant culture, and the narrative is often poorly written about communities of color. And so when you can see yourself as whole, when you can walk into a theater and you can see a play where your mother or your grandmother or one of your siblings is represented, there is a kinship immediately. There is an understanding immediately, and it's vitally important because when you're able to see yourself as whole, then you're able to exit that theater chamber and to treat someone with another kind of intentional civility. You feel better about being a human being.
Would you like to add to that?
It generates pride. That's very important.
That's right.
Where do we find more information?
www.ebonyrep.org, 323-964-9768.
Join thousands who are running from Dodger Stadium to the sea. Watch Outfest Fusion burst with diversity. Or join Councilmember Buscaino for a day of planting trees. All this in Things to Do.
It's the largest marathon held in California, the 4th largest in the country, and the 7th largest in the world. The 2020 LA Marathon offers a run that passes every major landmark from Dodger Stadium to the Santa Monica Pier. Entertainment centers located throughout the course will reflect the ethnic and cultural diversity of the city. The 2020 LA Marathon happens Sunday, March 8th. For details, visit lamarathon.com. Don't miss Outfest Fusion, a festival of international film, music, and storytelling focused on people of color. Discover breakthrough works from today's most exciting underground artists, musicians, and creators. Outfest Fusion begins Wednesday, March 6th. For more information, visit outfest.org/fusion 2020. Celebrate and plant trees this Arbor Day. Join Councilmember Joe Buscaino, CAL FIRE, LADWP, and Cleaner Greener East LA for a day of climate and community action. The goal is to plant 300 new trees in Wilmington, surrounding the Banning Museum and Recreation Center. Following the volunteer tree planting, City Plants and partners will host an environmental community fair with food, music, hands-on exhibits, and more. 2020 Arbor Day celebration happens Saturday, March 7th. For more information on this free event, visit their listing on Eventbrite. And that's a look at some things to do.
That's it for this edition. I'm Saida Pagan. From all of us here at LA This Week, thanks for joining us. A reminder that you can catch us online at lacityview.org. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. See you next time for more LA This Week.